Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Greetings, feely humans. Welcome. This is episode 36 of You, Me, Empathy. Thanks for being here. I am so happy you're here. I'm so happy you're engaging in this empathy community, this vulnerability community, this mental health community. You guys make my heart swell so big, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Today's episode 36, is with my guest, Carrie Arcos, who's a writer and teacher. And this is kind of a special episode. All of the episodes are special, but this one is timely because Carrie is going to be a guest at Pasadena Loves YA 2018. It's a fantastic book festival in Pasadena at the Pasadena Public Library, one that I've attended multiple times and also volunteered multiple times. It's run by Ali and Alethea. If you remember Alethea from episode 14 on failure, she runs it. It's a fantastic free book event full of amazing authors, and you should definitely go, and you can meet Carrie in person. So if you want to learn more about Pasadena Loves YA, go to www.pasadenateenbookfestival.com, or you can just search Pasadena Loves YA, or you can just go to the link in the show notes for this episode. Other authors that are going to be there, probably you've heard of them all because they're amazing. Cory Doctorow, Jennifer Brody, Tilly Walden, Sarah Santana, Farrah Penn, Mary Pearson, just too many amazing names to name. Just a great lineup this year put on by Bridge to Books and the Pasadena Public Library. So really excited about that. But this podcast is about empathy. You, me, and empathy, actually. And on this episode with Carrie, we talk about writing and teaching and human resilience and the amazing beauty and power of storytelling. Carrie had a pretty fascinating upbringing. She lived with refugees and an adopted brother, and she was just a delight to talk to, and she's a delight to listen to. So put her into your ear holes and go pick up her book. Her book, We Are All That's Left, her newest book is called We Are All That's Left. And I started to read it. It's fantastic. She's a phenomenal writer. And I think you'll love her just as much as I do. And go to Pasadena Loves YA. Did I say the date? I did not. The date is Saturday, September 15th from 12 to 4. Again, it's a free event. It's going to be held at the Central Branch of the Pasadena Public Library. At 285 East Walnut Street in Pasadena. So go check that out. Go meet Carrie and a bunch of other amazing authors. And thanks for listening to the show. I appreciate you. Check me out on Patreon, patreon.com/youmeempathy. You can support the show for as little as 25 cents an episode. And if you don't want to do that, that's okay. I still love you. You could support the show for free by going over to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and leaving me a review. That would be fantastic. I love to read them on the show. I do. So go write something so I can read it on air. Yay. Okay, I love you. Thanks for being here, and enjoy this episode 36, with Carrie Arcos on writing, teaching, and human resilience.
You, me.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am honored to embark on another empathy adventure with teacher, National Book Award finalist, young adult author, and Thrifty's Chocolate Malted Crunch superfan, Carrie Arcos. Hello, Carrie.
Hello. Wow, that's quite an introduction.
I like to throw in little bits of my guest in there, so it's fun for me.
And I do love chocolate malted crunch. That is my favorite. Love it. So that's awesome.
It is very good. And if the listeners, if you haven't had Thrifty's brand of chocolate malted crunch, it is divine. So go on your way, as you're listening to this, go toward Thrifty's and pick up some because it's delicious.
Yes, and Thrifty's is in Rite Aid now, and I'll tell you, it is not as expensive as all those crazy brands out there, and it is better. So
that is so true. Yeah, it is not as expensive. I do recall. I have fond memories of going to Thrifty like after school many decades ago with my mother, and we'd get a scoop of Thrifty, or we'd even get like those big sticks, and back then they were only $0.25, which was amazing, but I think only a scoop was like 50 cents.
Yeah, it may be a little bit more now, but it is definitely cheaper than what you'll find in those, foo-foo ice cream places, as I like to call them. But yeah, growing up, I used to, every time we went to the beach, on the way home, we would always stop for Thrifty ice cream. So
nice.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, before we get into, so let me set the scene a little bit for the listeners. So Carrie is here today. This was kind of a quick moving impromptu thing for the podcast. And my friend and previous guest, Alethea, episode 14, she talked about failure. Alethea runs and has created with her friend Allie the Pasadena Teen Book Festival, or Pasadena Loves YA. And it's a great festival up in Pasadena at the Pasadena Public Library that I've been a part of volunteering for the past few years. And Carrie is one of the authors at this event. So I thought I'd have Carrie on to explore her story a little bit, talk about her writing, just, she's a teacher as well, talk about that. So we'll get into all of that. But before we do, as we always do on You, Me, Empathy, we have an emotional check-in. We just talk about how we're doing. How are you doing today, Carrie?
Today I would say I am better than I was last week.
Well, that's good.
So that's good. Last week I felt like I went from 0 to 100 in one day. And so it was a pretty stressful week. And today I actually feel pretty rested and excited about the new year, the new school year. I'm ready for a new beginning. That's one of the things that's great about teaching, is that, there are beginnings and endings. And I'm excited to greet all my students on Monday.
That's great.
So, yeah.
That's good to hear. Yeah. I mean, so my wife is a teacher. She teaches English at a local community college here. Mm-hmm. And there's these built-in boundaries almost, right, with being a teacher, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. Like there's clear, time starts and ends, and it's really good. Boundaries is I've never thought of it. I've never thought of them as being built-in boundaries, but it's very true.
Yeah, no, my wife is always very thankful for those few weeks that she has here and there. I mean, she teaches winter classes or summer classes sometimes here and there, but it's always a needed break because the teachers of our world are doing the Lord's work.
And true, very true.
Yeah. Well, for me, I will just say that my week has been very hectic. A lot of things going on. I think last episode I had mentioned that Jessica and I were looking for a house, or we were actually at that point, we were waiting to hear if our offer was accepted. And as of this recording, the offer was accepted, and we are attempting to close escrow by the end of this month. So by the time this episode comes out, which will be in a couple of weeks, actually, we're doing a quick turnaround on this one. A few days after that, we'll be closing escrow, hopefully, fingers crossed. But it's very exciting. It's very overwhelming, as always, and I'm just trying to take it a day at a time.
Yay! Well, congratulations. I know I've said that to you before, but yeah, I'm just, it's very, yes, overwhelming, exciting, all the feelings, and then a little bit of like, we want this, right? Is this right? Is this right? Should we be doing this?
Right? It's like it's huge, it's like the most massive decision you'll ever make, and you naturally question yourself.
Yeah, and then as you're signing all these documents, which you're trying to really understand, but you understand, but you don't fully understand.
Oh my gosh, so true.
Yeah, and it can be overwhelming. But welcome to that milestone, right?
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, we really love the place. It's very funky and quirky, and it's in a sort of rural part of Orange County. It's in a place called Trabuco Canyon, and we have horses, and it's like a horse community, and it's lovely. And so we are very excited for that next step of our journey. So that's where I'm at.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get into your story a little bit, Carrie. I always I'd like to get a little bit of who you are in terms of some seminal moments that from your childhood or young adulthood or adolescence, just some seminal moments in your life that speak to who you are today.
Wow, that's a big question.
It is. You don't have to name all of them, but just maybe one or two that kind of speak to who you are.
Yeah, no. So I'm originally from upstate New York, from Albany, and probably one of the biggest markers of my life was when my family moved to California. And I wasn't very old at the time. I was only 7. Yet that move proved to be pretty traumatic for me. And it is something that I've had to kind of go back and visit as an adult and deal with some, feelings towards my parents, at kind of, in my opinion, I lived in a very safe space as a child when I was 7, and with family and friends, and we were just in a very close-knit, loving community. And when we moved to California, we moved to Anaheim, and it was this city and all these people suddenly that, we didn't know. And it wasn't so safe. And so I think that there's a part of me that kind of always goes back to that little girl with, tears streaming down her face, looking out the back seat of the station wagon.
Oh, yeah. Classic image.
Yes, I can even see it now, and people waving, and, as we made our journey across country. And when I graduated from college, my parents came out. I was on the East Coast. I went to a school in Massachusetts, and we did a big family trip, East Coast trip. And we actually went and saw our old house, that I grew up in. And I remember I just started crying when I was with my parents, and I was like, this is so weird. What's wrong with me? And then I realized I had harbored some resentment towards them for moving me away.
Yeah.
And me not having that choice. And it actually turned into a really good time with me and my dad, and with me forgiving him and us talking it through. And it was really powerful. But it's crazy because that was when I was 7, and you kind of think like, oh, 7 years old, come on, you're still really young. I mean, do we really remember everything? But the profound impact that move had on me, really influenced me as a child and then adult.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, I mean, any like uprooting, right? Like that, at any age is hard. And especially at a young age. Like, has that experience, sort of helped you with your own kids in some ways?
We haven't really had the need to uproot them, so that is interesting. But I think one thing I am conscious of is how are our decisions that we make, how are they affecting the kids?
Yeah.
Because my parents were great, and I actually have a very close relationship with them, which I'm so grateful for. But I remember there was another time too, which I kind of was like, what's going on? But they had chosen to adopt, my youngest brother. He's adopted. And I remember feeling like, there wasn't any sitting down of the family. It was just kind of like, oh, here's your new brother,
Like, I want to be on this decision.
Right. And I mean, really, they're the parents. It's not like I needed to be in on it. But I remember it was also at a crucial time. I was, what was I? I was about 13. And so then suddenly there's this new little boy that was cute and everything. But then, I'm having to babysit and having responsibilities. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I never asked for this, where was I in this decision? And so I think like just being conscious of my own parenting that, that my husband and I, we're the parents, we're the decision makers and have the final say, but processing the kids through things, a little more, maybe those experiences have led me to do that, or want to do that with my own kids.
That's good to hear. Yeah. I hear from, or, you hear stories, and I just think it's important as someone looking back on my own childhood. I do that a lot, in therapy or just this, doing this podcast and relating to other guests is, I was such a sensitive boy, and I sort of felt the world. I still do. And, not having that mirror with which I can kind of look back a little bit and maybe understand through parents that are open with me or talking about, emotions with me, or like it makes me happy to hear that you're creating that space for your own kids.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I read that, so you had this adopted brother come into the picture, and where was he from?
We actually knew his grandparents. Let's see. They were actually my parents' realtors when we moved from New York.
Oh, okay.
And then they ended up joining a church that my parents started. So he was their grandson, and they were not able to, or didn't feel that they would be able to really, take him in or provide as good care for him. And, his mom was, I think that she was on alcohol and drugs, and, his dad was in jail, and, the courts basically had taken him away. And, so, and I think my parents had always, kind of talked about or thought of adoption. And so when they heard about him, they were like, we'll foster him, And so it started as fostering parenting, but then it quickly turned into adopting. And so
has that, like, being in that environment and being, having an adopted brother and having to, take care of him at 13, like, has that affected you and sort of built your framework for how you are as an adult today?
I don't know if that particular, it's definitely, I guess you would say built more empathy, in my life, and more of an openness to something like adoption. I think some people get maybe nervous of that or aren't sure, but since, we have had that as a family, I see that as very, normal, and, choosing to help others, that need a home, and creating home for them. And, my parents, they had always modeled that for me. And, I had forgotten, which is so weird, but when I was, writing We Are All That's Left, my latest book, it deals with, there's some Bosnian refugee story within it. And I've also done a lot of work with refugees, like Syrian refugees. And I've always been, drawn to refugees and their stories, and wanting to see what I can do to help them, help provide them, or help, them find a sense of home, after being uprooted.
Absolutely.
And I realized that when I was a little kid, my parents took in two kids from Nicaragua, and during the crisis that was happening over there, I guess it was in the late 70s now, but they lived with us for a number of years, and then they moved with us even to California. And so I had, an older brother and sister for a few years. And for some reason, I was kind of like, oh, yeah, they were refugees. Like, I had forgotten that they were refugees themselves,
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, so from a young age, my parents had always modeled that, kind of taking in the outsider. And I think that has definitely influenced me as an adult.
Yeah, what a beautiful thing that is. And I think that's just a great lesson for each of us is just this reminder that there is so, like, we're all, especially, myself, I'll speak for myself, coming from I'm a white male privilege, looking at the world in this more sort of empathetic, compassionate way will allow us to create opportunities for others, like what your parents did, and what you ultimately did by joining. You joined what was it, AmeriCorps?
Yeah, I joined. It was a domestic Peace Corps. I'm not actually sure if it's still in existence, but yeah, it was under Clinton back in the day. But called AmeriCorps.
How was that experience?
Very eye-opening. I ended up being stationed in the greater Boston area at Catholic Charities, Refugee and Immigration Services. And I got to work with and meet people from all over the world, which I loved because I love meeting people from different cultures. And but it was also hard because just seeing and realizing how much hardship, there is and there was. And I had just graduated from college. And so my time in college had been pretty insular, this very idyllic Northeast, private school, and kind of hadn't really paid much attention to what was going on in the world.
I think most of us go through that in college.
Yeah, totally. And so I started meeting people. It was when they had shut down Guantanamo Bay for a little while. So I met a lot of Cubans and Haitians and Bosnians and Jamaicans and people just from all over the world. And I taught citizenship classes and ESL classes and helped resettle people. And it was a profound, I'd say that experience as well has been one of the most profound on my own life and my worldview.
Yeah.
Everything just expanded after that.
Yeah. What I'd imagine pretty humbling experience that was.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I was such a kid too, I was I was 21, barely 21. And, naive, in a lot of ways too, to others' experiences. And when you meet in your face to face with people, sitting down and actually having a conversation and hearing their stories, it's no longer a number and a statistic. It's real people and real hardship and real pain. And it was profoundly humbling and life-changing for sure.
Yeah, it's why we need, all of us, each of us need to, ingratiate ourselves in those experiences, because we do tend to, as a society, get too caught up in our own bullshit, and we forget about, and like you said, it's just numbers, and it's easy to forget numbers, right? And so we need to remind ourselves that we're all humans, and we're all deserving of love and care.
Yeah, and we all have value. I think too many times, we come from systems or backgrounds or ways of thought that place certain people and people groups with more value over others, and
totally.
That's what you got to fight. And it's not true. None of it is true.
No.
No life is more valuable than another life. They have all equal value.
Absolutely. Yeah, I started reading your book, We're All That's Left. I didn't have a chance to finish it, but one of in the synopsis, you talk about the changes that happen, like when we face suffering and pain, and that is a theme like of this show in many ways. Is this transformation when we go through hardship in these experiences, and it's profound, and it is an experience that brings perspective and connection and healing. And I think, I guess I don't know where I'm going with that, but I think we'll get into that stuff when we talk about your book, but that's just a thing that I said just then.
Okay.
I'm still a little discombobulated this week, so pardon me.
I'm thinking about how much your house is cost.
I'm thinking about the house. I've got house brain. It's this new thing called house brain.
Yeah, no problem.
So you're a teacher currently, is this correct?
Yes.
And what do you teach?
Currently I teach high school English. I am teaching 11th and 9th grade. So,
nice.
Yeah.
I had a pretty so I was an English major in college, and I'm a writer editor, and that's what I do for a living now. But I had one of the most profound experiences in high school. I think it was my sophomore year, maybe my junior year. And I went to a Catholic high school, and the teacher was a priest, essentially. His name was Father Butters. And
that's awesome.
And he, I remember he really instilled in me this love for, I was always a reader and I enjoyed reading, but really he instilled in me the kind of sparked the love for writing. And I remember he used to give us Fs if we ever had a run-on sentence, which is kind of silly and like not something I would do. You know, it's a little too grammar Nazi for me, but it always kind of stuck in my brain, and I have a fondness for that experience. So do you love teaching high school English?
You know, I do. I love high school students. I started my career back with Catholic Charities teaching ESL and citizenship, and that's when I realized I really like teaching, and that was primarily with adults. And then after that, I ended up teaching high school for a number of years, and then I had some children and wanted to be more part-time, and then I taught on the college level. And last year I went back to high school, and so I've been away for a while, but I love teaching English, but I think it's more that I also love just teaching high school, that age. And though English is my field and I feel the most comfortable teaching, even if I had to teach something else, I think I would still enjoy just the act of teaching and being with high schoolers. There's just something like, you know, they're going through all these firsts, and, you know, there's so many ups and downs, and, you know, I feel like it's a time that you can be really speak into someone's life, you know, for the positive and for the negative, unfortunately, because I think about how many of those negative voices we have from our high school years, right? In our heads.
Yeah, totally. Bullies and whatnot.
Yeah. Or even teachers just saying, you know, terrible things. But so I love being in that space, standing in that space is an honor, I feel.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I mean, such an impressionable age, and you're right. Like, so much change during those periods, so much change. And if like we can be, you know, as a teachers, and you can be, you know, a positive influence and sort of guide people in ways and give them, you know, beautiful frameworks for looking at the world through, you know, great books and things like that, then that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, for sure.
What books are you teaching right now? Are there specific books you're teaching?
Well, for ninth grade, so over the summer they read Fahrenheit 451.
Okay.
And so I was a big Bradbury fan growing up, and this is the first time I'm teaching ninth grade, and I haven't read that book in a long time. So I read it again this summer, and I was just fascinated, like how well written it is, and then just like how many things he kind of anticipated happening, you know, from huge big screens to interactive TV to, you know, almost like the iPad, you know. It's so good. And then the 11th grade is American Lit. So it's chronological, and we hit kind of some big ones. Like we're starting out with The Crucible. It's a play, but
classic.
Yeah, classics. We do a lot of the classics. The Great Gatsby is another one, and you know, we do quite a bit of shorter fiction. And then the second semester we launch more into the novel and A Raisin in the Sun and things like that.
Yeah. Now, like what is, when you're teaching a specific book, like what's the approach? Like what are you trying to get the students to learn? Are you looking at like various themes and like how that sort of applies to life, and what's your approach?
Yeah, I think for me, it is definitely thematic. I mean, there are certain, you know, skill sets that, like with literary devices and things like that, that you're always trying to get them to see and understand, and critical thinking skills and all of that. But I think big picture, if there's a way that I can try to get them to connect with something, some aspect of the text, that's always my goal. Even if they're like, oh, not so much into the story, it's like, well, what, are there things that we can appreciate about it? And what, that whole idea too of putting yourself in another's shoes, the whole empathy thing. I feel as readers, the more, if I can get them just to read a tiny bit more or like, get them outside of themselves, get them putting themselves in another person's shoes. It builds their own empathy. And so that is one of my goals actually when I teach, is to help them expand their empathy. I'm big into empathy. In case you haven't noticed that.
I am too, actually, it turns out.
I know, I can tell from the title of this podcast.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to ask about that. And you're so right. Like I've always said, and people have said before me, stories are empathy machines, right? And I think it was Roger Ebert who said, like, movies are essentially like empathy machines. Like, if we can relate to characters and bring it back into our own lives and kind of like look at the world through their shoes and vice versa, it's a very transformative, powerful thing.
Oh yeah. And I mean, even with something like The Crucible, which, there's all kinds of things to talk about, and there's, these horrible characters doing horrible things. It even just, going, well, why do you think they're doing that? Like what, even empathizing with, I guess, the devil, so to speak, there's always a reason why someone is acting the way they are, so.
Yeah. No. And I, is there when you're trying to get your students to kind of see, put the character in their shoes and kind of see the world through the character, like, is there, like, do you ever get into like morality and kind of that stuff?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, we get into it all. I mean, I always try to create, a safe space that, we're going to have different opinions, and that's okay. But yeah, the why, I think it's interesting to get into the motivation, right, behind these characters, and the why they have that worldview or that moral worldview or that compass, and what's different. Do they, as students, do we share that same moral compass, or has it changed, and why is it changing, and what do they think about it? Is there a clear right or wrong for these characters? And yeah, we totally get into all that.
That's great. And it sounds like your students are developing critical thinking skills.
Hopefully.
That's the goal, right?
I can't say for all. There may be a few that I'm like, oh, I don't know, but
Well, they have to meet you where they are. They have to give a little bit too.
Yeah, they have to want it. And what is true about that is developmentally, sometimes some are not as mature as others, and it might not happen until college, that the aha moment. And, they'll be sitting in a freshman comp class or something going, oh my gosh, this is how you write. Why didn't anyone ever teach me how to write an essay? Yeah. I can't believe it. But if you look back, their whole life they've been taught, this is how you write it, but it doesn't click. So yeah, I don't know.
And that's okay, right? Like, I think it's so easy to just like start comparing ourselves to others, but we each have our own journeys and learning styles, and I think that's important to consider as well. It is.
But it is hard with traditional education, as we move people along. I've been thinking about this. That's why it's coming to mind. But yeah, as we move people along, from grade to grade, college prep this, college prep that, we don't necessarily, it's difficult for the ones that, can't keep on that path,
Yeah.
So
what do you like? How do we remedy that?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, I mean, people have been asking that question for decades.
I know, for a long time. I think people are trying, different things from, different, homeschooling, different charter school methods, different magnet programs. There's even, I forget what it's called, but a philosophy out there where it says, well, the kid should direct his or her learning and only study what he or she is interested in.
Right. I've heard about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how that would happen with like a school with hundreds, like thousands of students,
Right.
But yeah, so it is more difficult for the ones that just, or lack of a better phrase, march to the beat of a different drummer.
Yeah. That's kind of how I felt in school. I was a bit of a, I was going to use the word late bloomer, and I think that's sort of hard on myself, but it came a little bit late for me, and I struggled in school because I felt I was marching to a different beat and felt a little isolated in that, and it's hard on kids,
Yeah, totally.
I would have loved a school where I could just be outdoors and kind of learn how to just live like Jack London did.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Yeah. Is there a book that you'd love to teach, but you haven't gotten the chance to?
Oh my gosh. Let's see.
I mean, even modern book.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, schools are still teaching the same books that we sort of learned.
Yes, this is a thing I've been talking to my department about. I've been trying to push some different books, and everybody's pretty open to it. The hard thing is with my American Lit being a survey course, you kind of, there are certain pieces that we do teach, but there's oh my gosh.
We're All That's Left.
We're All That's Left. I actually might have them read it second semester as a reading circle.
Nice.
But no, I love The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Mm-hmm. It's a great book.
I think that would be pretty cool to teach. And so I have been thinking about that for second semester, possibly throwing that in there. So that's pretty modern. And then I also read and loved recently, and I love all the themes in it, and I thought the writing was really amazing, was Little Fires Everywhere.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it's by Celeste Ng, and she, I forget what her first book was. First book had a lot of like acclaim, and I'm forgetting the title, but I think it's really great, amazing. And that's really new. I think it's still in hardcover. It's not in paperback yet.
Yeah.
But as I was thinking about some new ones for second semester, that one is definitely one that's come to the top of my list.
Nice. What would it take to get a new book into your curriculum?
Oh, pretty, it wouldn't be that hard to do because we're pretty open. We just have to have the same amount of novels, and it's not necessarily that we have to all teach the exact one.
Okay.
But I would want it to have some literary merit, obviously for us to study it.
Yeah.
But sometimes content too, I have to look at. I am teaching high school. I am teaching minors. So the content of the book, I do take that into consideration. Like how, if it has anything that, I might think through, maybe a parent might find questionable. I have to think, okay, what would I be prepared to have that battle? And,
yeah.
And how would I justify it, and why would this be educational? All of that stuff. So there is that to keep in mind as well when I'm choosing, what
that makes sense.
I teach. Yeah.
Yeah. You probably don't want them to read Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho.
No, No, I mean, I could maybe put it on a list if they wanted to read it themselves. Like, I'm all for everyone, reading whatever they want to read. It's fine. But yeah, not. I wouldn't want to die on that hill.
Yeah, I hear that.
There's too many other great books,
So many great books.
So many great books.
That's why I'm drowning in books over here.
Oh yeah. What are you? What's a book that you're enjoying or you've read recently or?
Well, I'm currently reading Carrie Clutter's book.
Oh yeah.
The First Time She Drowned.
Yes, I read that when that came out a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying that. What else am I reading? Oh, I don't know. It's hard to keep track.
It is hard. And when people ask, because I read all the time, but then people ask me, what's your favorite book or this or that? And my mind is always like, I don't know. Like it just draws a blank all the time. But.
Oh, I hear you totally because I'm reading all the time and I'm reading across like every genre,
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. One I mentioned on the show before, but I wanted to mention to you because I just love it and it brings me so much joy is Jenny Lawson's book, Furiously Happy.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
It's nonfiction, and it's basically a series of essays about mental illness and her mental illness journey, and she is just delightful. She goes by the Bloggess. That's her blog, and
oh yes, I follow that blog.
Yeah, she is delightful and so funny. So if like you're into sort of self-deprecating, insightful, clever humor and sort of vulnerability around mental illness, it's very much a good read.
Okay.
When did the writing come into play, and does being a writer like inform your teaching and vice versa?
So the writing, I'm definitely one of those people who always wanted to be a writer, but I think that I liked the idea of writing rather than writing. And also I was pretty busy, teaching, and then I started having kids, and, so timing, I wasn't really committing the time. And then let's see. Okay. So I found out that I was going to have a third child, not planned. And that kind of rocked my world. And, but it also his birth also kind of spurred me to get my writing, if I was going to really do the writing thing, to really pursue it, because it was never going to get easier. I was never suddenly going to have all this time and all this epiphany. It was just going to take hard work. And so I started, so I had 3 kids, a 2-year-old, a baby, and then a 6-year-old. And I was working part-time, but I just started going to the coffee shop really early in the morning and making it kind of my office hours, like 6 a.m. And, my husband was very supportive, and he's like, whatever we need to do, to help you reach your dream. And so even though it was really difficult having a third kid and it was not part of the plan or my plan, it actually helped me decide to really just go for it. And then within that year is when I wrote a very horrible science fiction book that won't go anywhere. But it helped me showed me that I can go the distance of a novel.
Yeah.
I had been kind of afraid of the form for a while, like, oh my gosh, it's so long, and do I really have the chops to do that? But I ended up writing my first book after about a year after he was born, and I got an agent, and that ended up selling to Simon and Schuster.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was amazing. And then that was the one with the National Book Award.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also crazy and like totally unexpected and insane.
And what
yeah,
was that one called again?
that's called Out of Reach.
Okay.
And that one out of all my books is probably the most, maybe I guess, personally connected. So it was a very cathartic experience. At the time, I have a younger brother who was struggling with addiction of all kinds of drugs and alcohol. And
Mm-hmm.
we very much thought, okay, we're going to end up getting the call that, he's overdosed or, something. And so that kind of spurred the idea for Out of Reach, which is about a girl who goes searching the streets of San Diego for her older brother who's addicted to meth. And so even though that book, it wasn't based on real life, the emotion, it's very emotionally true, that
Sure.
book. Because I hadn't read that many books that really focus on the siblings' perspective, of dealing with addiction and a family member.
Sure.
So.
No, it's really interesting. Yeah. I'd like to, that's a book I'd like to pick up myself. Cause I have personal experience in that as well. I have two younger brothers. One of my younger brothers, had some addiction issues and he's schizophrenic, and there is a just a helplessness with that experience, as a sibling of that, and just like feeling a little helpless, feeling a little lost in that. But I think what helps is trying to connect, trying to understand, trying to learn about the addiction, trying to learn about the disease, whatever it is,
Well, and there's a little bit of anger too, I think, because so much, and it came from, I was reading Beautiful Boy by, oh my gosh, I forget the name. They actually made it into a movie. It's about a father's journey with his son who is addicted to meth. And then the son wrote a book later called Tweaked, I think. Something. Anyway, the guy that starred in The Office is going to be in it. He was Michael. Oh, I forget his name now, that actor. Steve Carell.
Steve Carell, yeah.
So I just saw like a trailer for it. Anyway, but I was reading this book, and there was the guy, the father, it's his journey about trying to rescue his son. But he also had daughters. But there was like maybe one paragraph out of the whole book devoted to his daughters. And I had thought, oh my gosh, like, I wonder like what they felt with so much attention, so many resources, so everything going to the son, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So anyway, I just kind of channeled some of that into a character named Rachel, and she's very conflicted, as she thinks about her brother, and then that conflict brings her. Feels a lot of guilt as well, and her own shame. Yeah,
no, that makes sense to me completely. And the author of Beautiful Boy, I just looked it up, is David Sheff.
Yes. So his son must be Nick Sheff. Then he wrote a book about his own personal experience, and I haven't read that one, but I think it's called Tweak or Tweaked, something like that.
I'll look it up and make sure to link all that stuff in the show notes.
Yeah, but Beautiful Boy, it's a really great read.
Oh, check it out.
Painful, but it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm into that stuff. Especially I'm interested in trauma. I think I'm drawn to stories of trauma, either real life or based on real life. And I'm fascinated by how we as humans react and process trauma.
Have you read The Body Keeps the Score?
Oh my gosh. I can't believe someone has finally asked me if I read that book, because I've asked 1 billion people if they've read that book.
And have they read it? No? They've all said
I've
no?
gotten a few people to read it, but that book has been all over episodes 1 through like 25 of this show. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I definitely use that. I read that for my research for We Are All That's Left.
Oh,
But
fascinating.
yeah, a professor friend of mine recommended it when we were talking, and he's also a therapist and deals a lot in trauma and all of that. So yeah, it was a fascinating read to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good, and I'm going to encourage you listeners. I know you've heard me say it a billion times, but if you haven't read it yet, go read The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. It's so good.
Yes, I second that.
So tell us a little bit about just like the synopsis of We're All That's Left, and then I want to get into a little bit of the trauma stuff.
Yeah, so We're All That's Left tells a story of Zara and her mother, Naja, and they are not a close mother and daughter. They kind of have a strained relationship, and they end up surviving a shared traumatic experience. And from that experience, the book ends up launching. It's set in present day Rhode Island, and then also during the early 90s in the Bosnian War. And so we kind of see Naja, Zara's mom, and how she survived the Bosnian War and living in Sarajevo. And yeah, and so it's essentially a story of family and trauma, the idea of shared trauma, and ultimately resilience and hope.
Ah, beautiful. I love that, and I'm really looking forward to finishing it. What have you learned in that process, in your research and the writing of the book, about the impact of trauma?
Well, I hadn't realized how much it could impact your actual, body, physically. And then also I was fascinated with the idea that how trauma, how they've done studies now to show that trauma literally can get passed down in someone's DNA.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Yeah, especially this is more like, severe trauma, like, they studied Holocaust victims and things like that, things of that nature. But, so the fact that it can actually alter your DNA, it's insane to me. It's crazy. So I started thinking about that idea of, shared trauma, and then along family lines, and what does that look like? And, our traumatic experiences. Yes, I know that they affect us can affect us emotionally, and the way we act and behave and treat others, and the whole fight or flight, that in our brains. But then also the idea that we carry our family's trauma is wild.
It is wild. So before, when I was sort of garbling through my comment about struggle and tragedy leading to connection and healing, can you, without spoiling the book, can you speak to that a little bit in terms of the story of their shared trauma?
Yes. How do I not spoil? Well, yes, she. So in Zara's journey, because of she's trying to wrestle with what has happened to her and kind of the PTSD that she's experiencing, and just the whole kind of why,
Yeah.
she ends up meeting someone who is kind of on his own journey of the why, but he explores it through faith. And he's kind of exploring every religion out there. And currently, when she meets him, he's a Buddhist. And so he's kind of a character that, because he's had his own trauma, that there's this idea of this sense of, not being alone in it, and how it can, that in itself can be healing. And it's not necessarily about the why, or maybe this shouldn't have happened, but how it does change you, but how it can also end up building resilience, in you, and how ultimately love and connection brings healing,
Yeah.
from that.
I love that so much. And it's all of the reasons why this podcast exists. It's reminding people that they're not alone in their struggle, right? Mm-hmm. And there is like I've had many personal experiences through this podcast and just outside of this podcast of the power of that relating to someone and their story, and then finding connection and healing. I feel like that is what life should be about. Not the struggle, not the tragedy, but the connection and like the healing that we can, sort of get to through those shared experiences. Oh yeah.
Like what you're saying just reminds me, just yesterday, my husband was sharing with me, he met with a friend who wanted to kind of talk to him about, because I guess he's kind of dealing with some stuff with his marriage, and just wanted to talk to my husband. And then at the end of the conversation, he just said to my husband, he said, just knowing that you and Carrie struggle too, and it's not always, roses or whatever. He goes, that just makes me feel less alone. Mm. And, it makes me feel like there's hope,
That's great.
So just even in the sharing of, look, we have, just in the sharing of our struggles.
Yeah.
Can be very healing,
I love that. That's so great. That he reached out to you and told you that. I love that. I love to hear that, because it gives me hope that people are being, hearing this message of vulnerability and openness can lead to these great sort of connection points with other feely humans.
Oh yeah, the whole vulnerability. Well, I mean, that's Brene Brown's,
Sure.
All her work.
Yeah.
All her books, it's basically vulnerability.
Yeah, it's the best.
It's the key.
It is the key.
Yeah.
So let's transition, I guess. Well, before we get into the festival, like, have you taken any of this knowledge about trauma and connection and healing into your own life? And do you have any specific examples?
Let's see.
Just with your own relationships, maybe with your husband or your children or your friends or your own mental health?
I mean, I guess with trauma, I don't know how to answer that question. I do know, for my own mental health, something I like to practice that is helpful is I've definitely gotten more into meditation, with Headspace. I started there.
Yeah, it's great.
It is something that my brother, who the good side of the story with my brother is that he is, I think, 8 years sober now, or 8 years clean, and he's in such a great space and doing really well. And he's one that has really encouraged me with kind of like looking into that as meditation and all of that, and how healthy and helpful that can be. So that is something that I've added into my own life.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've tried to do meditative practices, and I sometimes struggle with just the sort of traditional, like, sitting down sort of form, but I've learned that there are other ways that you can get in meditative states, either just like on a walk or through yoga or, things like that. So I think opening up that worldview a little bit and not thinking of like meditation, like I have to sit down cross-legged and that's meditation. Like there are other forms that still, give you that boost or whatever it brings that person individually.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So Pasadena loves YA.
Mm-hmm.
How did this come about for you? Is that something I don't know how it works. Did Alethea just reach out to you?
Yeah, I can't remember if she did or if I was like, hey, I have sometimes like we've known each other, for a few years and, sometimes she reaches out, sometimes I do, but I was part of it a few years ago.
Nice.
I think when my second book came out, and yeah, so it was a great experience. And I know Allison, she actually lives near a really good friend of mine. So, so that's how.
Cool.
That's how I get connected.
Well, I wanted to tell the listeners about it, so Pasadena Loves YA. If you go to PasadenaTeenBookFestival.com, you can see all the info there, but it's Saturday, September 15th from 12 to 4. It's a free event, and there's like a ton of great authors there, including Carrie. There is Atia Abawe, Jennifer Brody, Cory Doctorow, Gwen Katz, Nicole Maggi, Sam Miller, Mary Pearson for Penn, Amina Safi, Sarah Santana, Margaret Scott, Amy Trueblood, and Tilly Walden, who wrote and illustrated a graphic novel that I've been wanting to read for a while now called Spinning. And
I've seen that one.
I'm looking forward to reading that one, but I'm also looking forward to attending as well.
Yeah, it's always good. It's what's fun about these events is that you go and you get to, hear and listen to people and their process and about the different books. But then, you get to meet people who are book lovers and that's always fun, seeing people excited about the different books that are out there and just reading in general. And that Pasadena library, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Oh, it's I
love
beautiful.
That. I used to write there almost every day.
Nice. Yeah. Don't I love the narrowness of the hallways there through the books. It reminds me of the opening sequence in Ghostbusters.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right?
Or the stacks of like your college library. It reminds me a little of that as well.
Totally, yeah. Well, I'll make sure for the listeners, I'll make sure to link PasadenaTeenBookFestival.com in the show notes because I'll be there and maybe I'll see you there as well. Okay, so let's talk about empathy heroes. We always kind of wrap up the show where each of us mention an empathy hero in our lives. So these are people who are just good examples of empathy, who embrace empathy with their whole hearts. Doesn't need to even be a real person. It could be someone from fiction. Would you like me to go first, Carrie, or do you want to go first?
You go first, so
Okay.
I can think for a minute.
Sure. So my empathy. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I list an empathy hero in every episode. So I've been reaching out to people, but this time, my empathy hero is a listener of the show, and she's also a member of the You Me Empathy Facebook group. Karen Nicole. She goes by Shorty McSnorty. It's a delightful Instagram handle, Shorty McSnorty on Instagram. And she shared recently an article she wrote on Medium called I'm Fine. And it's about her experience with mental illness and the sort of taboo and stigma that still very much exists in our culture and our societal frameworks and in ourselves even. And she wrote a really beautiful article called I'm Fine on Medium, and I'll make sure to link that in the show notes. But she doesn't know I'm calling her out as an empathy hero this week, but I just wanted to share that and just tell her that, I appreciate her and I appreciate her sharing that article with me and the Facebook community. So, Karen Nicole, you are my empathy hero this week.
That's amazing. Okay. There are a few people actually that I could say, but the one that just really just popped immediately into my mind is a fellow educator. I'll just use her first name. Mm-hmm. Her name is Janessa, and she, ever since, I was new last year, and she just made me feel incredibly welcomed. She notices the nuances, right? And so she noticed when I was doing well, when I wasn't, and just, would send me little notes or just very encouraging. And we have a great rapport today and can just give little head nods. And, I have just felt nothing but a huge amount of empathy from her. And so, yeah, she's my empathy hero.
That's great. Good job, Janessa.
Yeah.
I love that. And especially when you start a new thing, it can be uncomfortable. It can be vulnerable. And when you have someone that can be there for you and just make you feel a little more comfortable and accepted, it's so powerful.
Yeah, no, and we're not even in the same department, so we weren't even seeing each other a lot. But she would just shoot an email. Saw you today. Hope things are going well. I'm here if you need anything. So I was like, what? Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
that's so great. Well, let's plug all your things, Carrie. Where can people connect with you online, buy your books, and all that wonderful stuff?
They can buy them wherever they're sold. I mean, there's of course Amazon, but any of their local bookstores that they want to support, like good
idea.
Romans or Skylight. I'm thinking of LA area. They can buy them anywhere. CarrieArcos.com is my website. And people can always reach me there. I'm also just I'm Carrie Arcos on Twitter, on Instagram. It's Carrie Arcos. So, and yeah, those things, they can find me everywhere.
Lovely. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit with me on the show. Sorry for having my house brain and being a little rambly, but I do appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to finishing the book. So
no, it was great. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And I hope your house stuff, everything closes and it's smooth as silk for you guys.
I appreciate that. Thanks for the empathy on that one.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And for you listeners, I'm here, you're here. We're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's you, me, empathy.